All right. So before we jump into demos, because we have a few demos to show, excuse me, I wanted to talk a bit about today's demo. It comes together pretty quickly off of something we worked on last week. We did a proof of concept with a financial tech software vendor who was very interested in doing this integration. And so I thought it would be neat to mention a bit about this proof of concept that we offer to our customers and prospects who would like to evaluate the technology. It's really a great little lab for us to test ideas, to discover what's possible, to prove that things will work or prove that they will not work. It's good to know that up front. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. If you're, even if you're not new to Servoy, it's possible to engage with us in a proof of concept to determine certain outcomes. And so, in fact, many of some of the extensions and the new features are born in these proof of concepts because it's really where ideas get tested and we can discover what's possible and also what people really need. And so this is one of those items that when it came across, my colleague was working on it, and when I heard about it, I was really excited because I know year after year I see this topic coming up, and so this is I think a real good one. And I'm excited to show it. So a bit about the demos. We're going to show something called single sign-on, something called multi-factor identification, and then also some self-service provisioning that is available. So let me jump right into things here. I'm going to launch a new client, and if you can see my browser, you can see that I'm prompted with a login and my company logo. Now, I didn't build this as a form in Servoy. What I've done is I've added a widget that we created that you can just drag and drop on a form. And what it's doing is it's connecting to the Okta Identity Management Cloud, and it's gonna take care of the authentication for me. Okay, so I'm gonna put in my credentials. And what I've done is on the Okta Identity Management Cloud, I've enabled multi-factor authentication. So when I sign in here, it's going to move me over to that step. This form, it shows Okta, but everything here can be white labeled and style can be controlled. So probably in a production setting, you would continue to see your company logo here. But it's pushing me over to the multi-factor authentication, and you've probably seen something like this before when you've accessed a banking application or some other application, and typically it's a text message or sometimes an email or even a phone call. So I'm going to go ahead and send an email to myself, and so that email is sent. And you can see that I get my one-time verification code. I've done this 40 or 50 times, so I'll go to the bottom and get the most recent one. There it is. Copy that, come back to the application and paste it in, and I've verified now through a two-step authentication. Now I've accessed a Servoy application. This could be any application. I could click around and use it, etc. That's a topic for a different day. Now I want to log out of the application. So the next thing I want to show you, so I've showed you right now single sign-on, where I'm using credentials from another organization, from an identity management platform to sign on. I've shown you multi-factor authentication, where you can use a two-step process or multi-step process to verify the user. Now a bit about self-service. I need some help signing in. I've forgotten my password, and I can go ahead and put in my email, and I get a link to reset my password. If I do this, I get there. Oops. And I go out and I self-service. I think I clicked an older email. Anyway, I'm not going to follow through all of that. But that's how you would reset your password. So this is something that I see a lot of our customers working on, is to build their own, like, I forgot my password workflow and manage all that. So a lot of these identity management platforms have that built into their single sign-on services. The other thing that I could do in terms of self-service is I could provision myself. So let's say I don't have an account already. I can sign up for an account, and I can go ahead and put in a new email. I'll use a personal email. That already exists. Well, I will delete that user and show you. So this is a good opportunity to show you some of the dashboard capabilities on these identity management platforms. So here I can see the users that are provisioned to my application, and I'm going to go into this user that I'm trying to create because it's already created. And I could, I think I have to deactivate it and then delete it. Okay, so he's gone. I can try this again. Okay, so now a verification email was sent. Probably have to sign out here. You can see that activate account, and it takes me directly into the application. So so there I activated my account, and it continued with the login process. So even though it's using a totally different service for that, it's all integrated together. This is another area that I see a lot of interest in, going back years and years, to be able to offer self-service for recovering passwords, for provisioning yourself to new applications, and a few other items. So that's pretty much the stuff that I wanted to demo to you. And in terms of under the hood, if I go to our login form, there is, pardon the console message up at the top, but you can see that really we just put this component on the form. You can see the elements. It's a sign-in widget. So this is a component that you would get out of the web package manager like any other component. You drag it on the form. You can see it right here, sign-in widget. Drag it on the form, and you can see that we specify the login callback. And so when the form loads, we sort of send a configuration into the widget, and when we're authenticating, we get this callback, and I'm just calling security.login. So there I'm using whatever other security mechanisms I have on the application. I can use that to complete the login. So pretty much by dragging this component onto your form, setting a bit of configuration like your your client ID that you've registered with Okta, that sort of thing, a little bit of branding, right? The logo for the Servoy logo. There's a bunch of other options there. I did enable the self-service registration was another option. But that's really the only code to show, because that's the only code that I wrote, excuse me, that has to do with the single sign-on part. So why don't we switch over to a bit about what we just saw, and then we'll have some time for questions, I think. So again, these identity management platforms are really sort of an as-a-service model of the part of IT which deals with managing credentials, password rules, security policies, and some of them even provide analytics about security, such as sessions and that sort of thing. The single sign-on terminology really refers to the fact that you are reusing a single set of credentials to gain access to a bunch of interrelated applications that need to work together. So why would your organization use a single sign-on technology like what we just demonstrated? It could be that your customers are asking for it. They want to already just manage, one set of credentials, and they don't want to have to create new credentials for every application, including your application. Other organizations do this because they want to, they really want to outsource this and rely on industry best practices and the best players in that industry. So in most cases, an identity management platform company can provide a more secure, robust sign-on experience and management of credentials and security policies than organizations can do by themselves. So just like you would outsource any other infrastructure like servers on the cloud or something like that, people are outsourcing the flow of identity management and sign-on to these providers. But really, I think for your end users, it provides a coherent user experience across an ecosystem of different applications. We did see the multi-factor authentication. The reason that this is becoming more and more the standard, and you've probably seen this in applications that you use yourself, is that most security breaches do come from compromised credentials. So a password was obtained and then someone gains access. They could be anywhere in the world and still gain access to your account because they have your password. So what multi-factor authentication is a step to intermediate that process and say, okay, you have the credentials, but are you really you? So you use something else, like do you have your phone with you? Do you have access also to an email account or even biometrics and that sort of thing? Most MFA strategies should be adaptive. The one that I showed you is forcing me to enter the verification code every time I log in. That's pretty strict. Usually what you see is something like every month you have to do it, or if you've logged in from a new device, then you have to do it. And the example I showed with Okta is nice because all I have to do is go into that dashboard, in the administration area where you saw me delete the user. I can go in there and I can say, okay, under what scenarios do I want to force the multi-factor authentication, and which mechanism do I choose? Do I want to do text message or email, etc.? Most of the time it's text message, but that's a bit hard to demo, so I switched it to email. Another thing that we showed was being able to do some self-service. This is really important to allow your users to manage their own credentials and manage this stuff themselves. It cuts down on support and it provides a more robust model. In terms of provisioning someone to, creating a new identity or taking an existing identity and provisioning them to a new application, this is something that we see a lot of interest in for years and years. And I think it's becoming easier and easier if you outsource this to one of these platforms. So finally, what is, type of what is in Okta? I meant to say, what is Okta? It's really one of the, there are many others, but it's one of the best-in-class identity management platforms that has all these tools that we're showing you. In addition to what I showed you, there's a lot of other things that get rolled into this service. Of course, you have full administrative control. You can do some analytics. You can see, where your users are logging in from and that sort of thing. So any other type of analytics you would expect. You can also white label everything, so the end user may not even know that they're using Okta, or they may know it, and that's their choice because they want to use one set of credentials for a bunch of different applications. Something that I didn't show that comes with this particular service is a whole slew of REST APIs. So anything that I could do in the administrative controls, I can also do via API. Something that I wanted to show was to go and fetch the user profile and display some things in the form after you log in, because there's a bunch of REST APIs where you can kind of double up on the single sign-on stuff with just a bunch of other security management that you can do as a service. Another cool feature is that your application can also exist in a marketplace of public-facing applications. So if someone wants to see what they can access using their credentials on an identity management platform, you can browse public-facing applications. Similarly, your users can also connect your application to other applications that are in the same sort of ecospace. And I think that's important for user experience. I'll leave this list of useful links up here. We do have a project home for this, and we're going to release this through the Web Package Manager. There's also the link to the Okta homepage as well. So if you have any interest in using this technology, please send an email to me or post a comment on the forum thread about this tech series. And this webinar is recorded, so you can watch it again if you missed anything. Steve, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple. Lewis gives more of a statement. I think he may already have some experience with this. It says, regarding how often the app prompts for MFA, on the sign-on tab for the Okta app, you can add a rule that defines how often the user is prompted, i.e. per day, month, 6 month, etc. And I think you talked about that the MFA frequency is configurable in the administrative tools of Okta.
Yeah, exactly. And even some of the scenarios are configurable. So if it's from a new device, you might request a certain kind of MFA option. If it's you haven't logged in a while, you can request a different one. So the flow of that is configurable completely.
I actually have a few questions of my own. The password requirements, are you able to configure things like how many characters in password, how many special characters, what special characters you want to exclude, things like that? Is that something that's configurable?
Yeah, it's totally configurable. So you may have noticed when I was doing the self-service part and I was creating the user, it sort of is checking the password as I'm typing it in for strength, right. And that's all configurable. And what's nice is you don't have to write that code yourself, and moreover, you get to use industry best practices. So if you want that strong password requirement, it's already created for you.
I know in my experience, several times I've had to build just exactly this, all of this stuff, how recovering passwords, entering new information, creating new logins. It's really a relief to see that there's something that's available and that handles all of that kind of heavy lifting. A couple of other questions. Is there a cost associated with Okta?
Yeah, there is. I'm not exactly sure of their pricing model, so you want to check that out on their website.
What if you have a mix of software as a service and on-premises? Will it work for both situations?
Right, yeah. And a lot of our customer base does have a mix of just that. Because you don't have to host any component of this yourself. It's not like you put in some libraries onto your web server or something to make it work. It's really completely as a service. So you drag that widget on the form and it takes care of the rest, regardless of how you deploy.
That's great. You said that you can configure things like the logos and things. Are all the labels configurable?
Yeah. So you can do branding, white labeling, and also multilingual. So a lot of our customer base is shipping applications to a variety of languages and locales. So you can do that as well.